you shall have your reward.
After the events of Diablo 3, the necromancers sought to seek refuge with the other priests of Rathma under the orders of Lord Dawn. After wandering Sanctuary and seeing the devastation that has fallen upon the once fought-for world created to get away from the eternal conflict. Joining the priests of Rathma, the necromancer tells them that the newly found knowledge in defeating both of the two most powerful ends of the spectrum of light and dark, Diablo as the prime evil, and Malthael, the aspect of death, infused with the primeval. Likewise, the priests of Rathma help the necromancer to better understand the cause for the eternal conflict and the goals for each side in taking over Sanctuary. They share with him that what both demons and angels have fought over for an eternity was the World Stone, and that since its destruction by Tyrael to keep it from becoming corrupted by Baal's tainted Soul Stone, that blood shards are small fragments of the World Stone that were created by its shattering within Mount Arreat, and are being collected by both sides, with the idea that collecting enough of them could bring back the power of the World Stone, as each harness a minute amount of the power that the World Stone once had. If one side could gather all the shards and find a way to fuse them back into the original World Stone, then they would have control over creation, gaining an upper hand in the eternal conflict, and all but sealing their victory against the other. He joins the priests as they venture out around Sanctuary, helping those in need of ridding the demons that plague the land. As time passes, the wear taken on by both his body and mind from the lead up to and fight with both Diablo and Malthael start to set in, pain slowly becoming more noticeable, healing taking longer, his powers, though still strong, seeming to dwindle slowly, the necromancer's own mortality becoming the subject of concern for him, as what he has grown to master in raising the dead, he now fears he will soon be joining them under the ground of which the endless war wages upon. Growing concerned, the necromancer asks that, with the evils coming back in time, how would they be able to keep both sides out of Sanctuary if everyone is mortal, and if one mortal can have the power to banish the evils from Sanctuary once and for all? The priests of Rathma tell him that, with Sanctuary being created by the angel Inarius and demoness Lilith, and creating Nephilim, the powers of their offspring supersede that of their predecessors, and if one side could gain control over them, the eternal conflict would be all but won. They also tell him of the only immortals to walk Sanctuary: Tragul, Kalan, Rathma, Zoltan Kulle, and the primevals. In being immortal, however, the body can die, but the soul will need a host body to regenerate into its physical form. They also told him of one Nephilim, Yudisian, whom was able to banish both the light and the dark from Sanctuary from expelling an incredible amount of energy from himself, and then reabsorbing it to save Sanctuary, sacrificing himself in the process, but for a time keeping both angels and demons away, despite now creating ties with demons, angels, the inhabitants of Sanctuary, and Sanctuary itself, forever having a gateway of return for both sides. There, however, was a possibility of having immortality that wasn't present before, using blood shards imbued into the body, as it not only could increase one's power, but also prolong the lifespan of the person greatly, possibly even into immortality. However, with such a power not seen since Yudisian, the repercussions of using them may lead down a dark path that in time may not be able to come back from. While this is going on for the necromancer, in the heavens, Tyrael, now embodying his role as the Angel of Wisdom, is sending angels down to Sanctuary to try to locate our hero to have him aid in finding the remaining Injurious Council, especially Imperius. Imperius has gone missing since watching Malthael vanish into the abyss, and seeing the once trapped souls of the demons he fought with for an eternity now free to roam and manifest their physical forms, feeling betrayed by his fellow angels for continuing to let the Nephilim be free to choose their own fate, and still bitter over Tyrael not being tried for his actions. His want to prove his valor and show his fullest potential consumed his mind, becoming an obsession with finding the Nephilim again and fulfilling his promise in, if seeing them once again, he would act out his revenge and kill them for doing what he could not do, especially for all to see, leaving the Angel of Valor to now truly feel fear. Tyrael has a group of angels go in search of Imperius in both heaven and Sanctuary. In the burning hells, once the primevals had been set free from Malthael's defeat, the Triune started to reform from the new remaining demons left in hell. while the demons, who were able to escape the heavens after Diablo's defeat, had been terrorizing the humans who had been taking shelter in Sanctuary, taking those corrupted into hell to begin rebuilding the realms for the Prime Evil's return, and forming new council in the Temple of the Triune in Kyrgyzstan. The Necromancers were the initial targets of the demons to corrupt, trying to break them into emotional vulnerability to make them easier to sway into darkness. Many demons were sacrificed in this effort, but in doing so, a handful of necromancers were taken back to help raise the dead and start an army for the Prime Evils to control once they had reformed back into hell. Many years now have passed. Our hero necromancer has become quite distant from the priests of Rathma, still sheltering in their presence, but mentally indifferent to their beliefs, seeing Sanctuary increasingly overrun with both angels and demons alike, both sides looking for him and any Nephilim like him. He questions why none of those who influence their beliefs, Tragul, Kalan, or Rathma, ever appear to help return the balance as chaos returns to what was once a safe place for his kind and those escaping the eternal conflict. But his questions go unanswered, aside from being told, "We only keep the sides of the light and darkness out of Sanctuary. In order to do that, both must be present. We are on neither side of the conflict. We are in the shadows until needed." Over the years, our hero had grown increasingly curious to the thought of the shards giving him the immortality that he seeks. His fights with the greatest of evils have taken a toll on him down to his spirit, loosening his grasp on the discipline he had within the teachings of the dark arts, focusing his thoughts on how long he would remain here instead of sustaining and perfecting his power. He would need to harness his true potential in his power. As he was able to control those of the dead, he could not fathom the thought of another raising and controlling him in the same manner. His desperation went as far as to putting a shard into his hand to feel the power of the World Stone. In feeling the strength from a single shard, knowing it was only a fragment of what he truly could become, he felt a need to retain his new level of power. Without knowing, because it was Baal's destructive power that was placed into the World Stone that caused Hero to destroy it, not only was their power still lingering in the shards, but Baal's corruptive essence was dormant, waiting for someone to awaken it from each shard. By placing a shard into his hand, he had started the slow but progressive process toward the darkness. As the years passed and he saw the increase in those trying to hunt him down, walking around and seeing the slain bodies of humanity as they were caught in the middle of a battle that wasn't theirs to fight, but were used as pawns and or prey for evil, the light that once surrounded our hero as he moved across Sanctuary slowly turned towards darkness. He wanted this conflict in Sanctuary to end, and as he aged, he knew his time was being limited in more ways than one. But in placing more shards into himself, his youth stayed present as if to slow the clock more on his mortality, but his mind slowly wasn't his to control, slipping into a conscience of darkness that blanked him of awareness until he fought it back into the depths of his mind, reminiscing being told of how his powers of the shard may lead him down a path he could not return from. Baal's corruptive power finally took its toll. The necromancer no longer stood for the light, his mind overwhelmed with the idea of destruction of the foundation that was put in place by the priests of Rathma, and upon returning to them, unrecognizable to his brethren. He takes the remaining shards, placing them into himself, his power escalating greater than he thought possible. The priests of Rathma tried to subdue him, wanting to take out the shards to bring his power and mind back to reality, but the power had overcome the necromancer as he started slaughtering those who resisted him. One by one they fell, with only a handful able to escape his wrath. As he started walking into Sanctuary covered in the blood of his fellow necromancers, he battled in his mind the demonic essence brought by Baal's essence in the shards, but with so many infused in his body, it was a losing battle and he was consumed by the darkness. Remembering that it was Anarius that was able to decrease the power of the World Stone, he knew if there was a way to reverse that effect and increase his power even more, he would need to journey into the realm of hatred to get his answers. The corruption was not spared in the heavens. As darkness once again shadowed over it, with only a dim light shining onto the front of the gates where Solarian lay at the entrance, Imperius's blood on the shaft, red blood drips at the blade onto the ground, and angelic bodies and wings spread out onto the surrounding area. Corruption has no preference besides those willing to accept it for their own personal gain, for the purpose of creating chaos in times of needing order. Heaven and hell now seemed one and the same, as if forming an impure Anu in the name of evil, humanity not being spared as well, and in desperation, a Nephilim calls to bring back the one who could set things right, Lilith. But with her time in the void for years past by any Nephilim could remember, it is unknown how she will react to her once beloved Sanctuary turned into everything she hated about the conflict she created Sanctuary for in order to escape it. Her motives for carrying out her cleansing of Sanctuary and saving her children were devastating for all those involved. But compared to what is known of Sanctuary now, the gamble to repeat history is worth the risk. according to Magnus, and Lilith is summoned to help restore Sanctuary back to its former glory days. Hopefully,